Like, what does this mean? Robert.
Is it the mailman?
Yes.
Mail, mail, mail. Welcome to Scary Mystery Surprise,
where we talk about scary things that surprised us around the internet.
I'm Edwin.
And I'm Michelle. Edwin, it's 1935, and you're throwing a party in Hollywood.
Ooh.
Everyone who's anyone is gonna be there. The Black Dahlia murder case is 12 years later, if that helps to put it in a timeline.
Okay, it does, actually.
You're there yelling at the caterers, trying to put the flowers in order. They just never do anything right.
So frustrating.
It's so frustrating. Your maid walks up to you and hands you the phone.
I have a maid?
You have a maid. You're in a posh Hollywood establishment.
Fancy, okay.
Yeah, you are in the it zone of Hollywood in the 30s. Could this be the call you've been waiting for? Will you be taking over for Boris Karloff in The Bride of Frankenstein? You'd be playing the Frankenstein monster.
Ooh.
Will it be you? No, it's just your friend Thelma. And that's fine too. You know, she's supposed to come to the party. And she's calling and she's just like, I'm coming to this party on Saturday. And she asks if it's okay if she wears her same clothes that she wore the night before.
It's like, no, woman.
And you're like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. So, you know, she's just checking in to make sure it's okay.
Image is important, okay.
You know, it's Hollywood. And Thelma goes on the phone and she's like, you'll never believe who I'm bringing. You'll drop dead when you see who I'm bringing as my guest. Who, you ask? But she's hung up the phone.
What?
I know, so annoying, but typical Thelma. And so you get back yelling at your caterers and arranging your flowers and the place settings. But you'll never find out who. Actress Thelma Todd is found dead that morning, slumped over the wheel of her car, still wearing her party clothes, draped in furs and jewels, with perfectly styled hair.
Dang it, Thelma. Told you not to wear the furs.
Which is weird because you can look at the crime scene photos. I don't know if you've ever done that with old crime scene photos, but her hair is like perfectly coiffed. Who killed Thelma Todd? This has been a popular, unsolved case for almost 100 years.
I'm looking at the crime scene photos, but like even the images look classier in black and white, I feel.
You know why that is, right? It's because
Why?
they used to shoot on 4x5 film. You know those big cameras that go and there'd be a big flash?
Oh.
So they're shooting the negatives this big. So that's why it looks so good. Like 4x5 is beautiful and it's so expensive to shoot on now, but that was just the film they used. So that's why old crime photos are beautiful.
Yeah, it looks so crisp and...
Yeah, well, that's it. Because a bigger negative, you capture more information. So...
And who's carrying her away? Because they're in suits.
The police?
Police and detectives?
Yeah, the police,
Or like in suits? What?
Yeah.
Like suit and ties and like hats and the neatly combed hair.
Yeah.
By the way, Michelle used to be a photographer for those who...
Everyone knows. Unfortunately, everyone knows. So anyway, let's talk about Thelma. I'd actually seen some of her movies before. She was actually kind of a well-known actress and comedian. If you ever see the movie Horse Feathers with the Marx brothers in it, she's very funny in these. She plays like the blonde in these movies. Like she's just like, her nickname is the Ice Cream Blonde.
Oh, that's nice.
But initially she wasn't going to be in Hollywood. She'd studied to be a teacher. And then she won a Miss Massachusetts beauty contest. She's from Massachusetts. Paramount Pictures basically scouted her and then sent her to actress school, like the weird little camp that they'd send anyone that they thought might be a potential actor. She graduated from that and then ended up starring in some silent movies. And then she transitioned into talkie films really easily because a lot of actors didn't because they had funny voices or accents. And the peak of her career was in 1931 when she signed with the popular producer Hal Roach and worked on comedy shorts with the Marx Brothers. She was in a lot of Laurel and Hardy's. Hal Roach is famous for doing The Little Rascals. So he was like doing all of those things. Hal Roach tried to make her like part of a female Laurel and Hardy. So she often co-starred with other famous actresses such as Zuzu Pitts, who Olive Oil from Popeye is based on, and then Patsy Kelly. And she appeared in almost 40 films with them. So Thelma Todd in 1931 starred in this film called Corsair, where she met the director Roland West. They started a love affair. Roland, of course, was married to the silent film star Jules Cameron. So they couldn't be together, and Thelma continued working and modeling and socializing. Kind of on the rebound, she married this guy named Pat DiCicco, who was this like a wealthy Italian guy from New York. And for some reason it says he got his wealth in the broccoli business, but I don't think that's correct. I don't think
broccoli business.
No, I think he was cousins with someone with the last name Broccoli. I don't think he was in the broccoli business.
I don't know which one sounds more likely.
I don't know either, but I'll let the audience decide. But potentially he was connected to the Italian mafia. He was also known to have a temper and rage and drinking, and so they were married in 1932, filed for divorce in 1934. Obviously, she was like, abuse, which, you know, he's not a great guy. And so Thelma found herself single and pushing 30.
Oh, no.
I know. Oh, God, what will I do? So she decided to invest in a hospitality business, opening Thelma Todd's Cafe in Malibu. Do you ever drive the PCH?
Whenever we have visitors. Yeah.
So there is this large building on the PCH, and it's still there. And it was like this Spanish colonial revival building that had its windows boarded up for a long time. And it has a pedestrian walkway that goes over to the beach. And that was Thelma Todd's Cafe.
What?
That's still there. That building is still there. You're going to recognize it when you see it.
Oh, no way. Yeah. I thought it was like a horse stables or something, but it
No. But then she had an apartment above that, and she lived there with Roland. Before I knew this story, I'd always drive by that and be like, what is that place? And why is it empty? Like for years, it was like boarded up. I think now it's just become like office spaces, but like for years, it was kind of like nothing. I don't know. The windows were always boarded up.
Piece of history right there.
I know, it's cool. So anyway, of course, she invested in this cafe. She lived upstairs. The cafe hosted a high-end restaurant called La Jolla upstairs and had a series of rooms for private events. And of course, Thelma invested in this with her married boyfriend, Roland West. So they were 50-50, lived in the apartment. Just a great idea. Can't commit to you in life, but can commit to you in business. Perfect.
30s, man. The 30s.
Look, it's swinging time. I mean, if I do the epilogue of this, where some of the characters did some other weird stuff, that's all. Back to the night that Thelma died. Thelma's invited to a dinner party at the Cafe Trucadero, thrown by actress and friend Ida Lupino, Saturday, December 14th. Her maid placed money and a gate key into her purse. Thelma then left for dinner, and as she was leaving, Roland told her to be home at 2 a.m. sharp. And Thelma laughed and said, 2:05 a.m.
Dang.
Like a sassy molassy. And she got into her chauffeured car. Thelma shows up at dinner, and so does her ex, Pat DiCicco. Court documents and witness testimonies claim that Thelma and Pat barely spoke to one another, but when they did, it was perfectly cordial. And that she really didn't pay him any mind because she was dating a secret man in San Francisco. At 2:30, the head waiter called Roland and told him that Thelma was on her way home in her chauffeured car and that she drank a lot. Thelma had actually had to start being chauffeured because she had had too many drunk driving accidents. And in the 30s, that's really something. And basically wasn't allowed to drive herself anywhere anymore.
How fast were people driving in the 30s? But I'm just curious. Like, is that like, are they like just,
It wasn't 60 miles an hour. I don't remember what it was, but it was definitely not what it is now. So it should have been less, but she had gotten in so many accidents that they were like, no more.
I used to work for a lawyer who had a DUI, and I had to drive him around, and he had a hired chauffeur. Yeah.
Yes. Also, it's nice if you have the money. Why not?
That chauffeur guy that used to drive him around had these stories about him. Oh, man.
So Thelma was last physically seen by her driver between 3:15 a.m. and 4 a.m. She was dropped off at the bottom of the stairs on the PCH Drive, headed northwest on the sidewalk underneath the public footbridge. Her driver said in court that he had asked if she wanted to be dropped off closer to the apartment, and Thelma had said no. And then on Monday, December 16th, Thelma's body was found slumped over the wheel of her car in the garage. She was dead. And court records indicate that she had a blood alcohol of 0.13 and 75 to 80% blood saturation of carbon monoxide. The car battery was dead, and the car was almost out of gas. Thelma's body was moved. It wasn't picked up or carried, but was originally slumped over to the side. Then she was slumped over the wheel. Then she was slumped over to the side, like the other side, which is weird.
It wasn't her, like her coming back from the dead and like,
that's what's weird. Like, this is why it's kind of a mystery. It said that she had a broken nose and broken ribs, but we both just looked at the crime photos. You can't really see anything that looks like she was beat up in those photos. But if that was in the autopsy, so be it. But there was like a little blood on her lips, but it didn't seem like there was any external bruising. There wasn't any like blood under her fingernails. There wasn't any sign of a struggle. Her gown still had its wilted boutonniere, and she was still wearing $20,000 worth of jewelry.
Wow. They didn't try to steal.
Yeah, no one stole anything. There wasn't a struggle. There was a handprint smudge on the car door. The garage window was found to be open, and her maid insisted that how could Thelma have died of carbon monoxide poisoning if the garage window was open? Because it was speculated that Thelma had come home drunk and gone to the car to be warm and turned on the car in the garage and died of carbon monoxide poisoning. It's also speculated that it had been a suicide, that she'd done that intentionally, but the trunk of the car was full of Christmas presents for people because it was December, and she'd just had a photo shoot to do her Christmas cards that year. So people weren't quite buying that she had committed suicide. I mean, obviously, following her death, it became headline news. With headline news, you always get a list of suspects and theories. And there's been conspiracy theories all up and down this forever. So I'm going to list some of the suspects and theories. Roland West. Of course, the married boyfriend. He's the easiest one. Yeah. Apparently, he had locked Thelma out of the house on purpose before because she'd come home so drunk and to teach her a lesson. And she had to break the window to get into her house. So clearly this had happened before. But also, one of the points someone was making is that, she was so bold and so self-assured that she'd just break the window and make noise. Why would she just go to fall asleep in her car? Why would she just go do that? Oh, did he find out that she had a secret boyfriend in San Francisco and, have an argument, lock her in the garage and causing the carbon monoxide poisoning or whatever?
You have an argument. What? You hit her in the face and then turn on the car and walk away?
Would Roland have locked her in? And then she would have had to have been I'm cold, and turned the car on and then just done that? I'm cold, I'm going to sit and sleep in the car.
I mean, I guess, yeah.
I believe he might have locked her out. I believe he might have done that. That's for sure. And then another suspect, Jewel Carmen, Roland's wife, she testified in court that she had seen Thelma in Hollywood at 11:15 p.m., which Thelma was driving in a car with an unidentified male passenger. However, none of that was true. So she testified in court. It's pretty weird that she kind of inserted herself into the story.
She wants to be part of the Hollywood court case.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Then Jewel changed her story again and said she hadn't seen Thelma for weeks.
What? Okay. And she's still a credible witness?
Yeah. And then she said, then she privately told the media that there's no way Thelma could have just died from carbon monoxide poisoning. Did Jewel secretly kill or hire a hitman to take out her husband's lover? Number 3, Pat DiCicco, the ex-husband, who was known to have ties to the mafia.
And it was like proven?
Yeah, so he was rich, had gone through a public divorce with Thelma. Well, and he'd spent most of his money on this divorce. He was known to have a problem with alcohol, domestic abuser. Apparently, he was said to be dating somebody new. And so, like, when Thelma and him saw each other at that dinner, they were fine because Thelma already had her new boyfriend in San Francisco, apparently. But the day that Thelma was found, Pat DiCicco had boarded a plane to New York, and they had to issue a warrant for him to come back. And so that was kind of suspicious, except that it was the start of the holiday season and all of his family lived in New York. She'd slandered his name in public or whatever. Like, that was a theory that had happened. And plus, you know, a domestic abuser, problems with alcohol, who knows what kind of grudges he was holding underneath it all.
Underneath it all.
Another suspect or theory, the Italian mob. In general, like not just
everybody.
Yeah, you know, there's a conspiracy that Lucky Luciano might have been involved in her killing, but it seems like that might have been added to the story later in the 80s. He was like under surveillance by the FBI at that point, so I don't imagine that he was able to like hide and come out here. I don't know. It just seems strange. Rumors floated everywhere that there was like illegal gambling and other mafia ploys like in the upper floors, you know, that were for special events. And that the mafia had been extorting cash from Thelma and used the restaurant as a credible front for their organized crime upstairs.
So that's how she could have been involved.
Yeah. There's this weird theory. She had a stalker.
Ooh.
Less than a year before Thelma's death, she started getting these weird ransom notes and vague threats saying things like, our friends in San Francisco will take care of you again. So here's like San Francisco coming into play twice. In this case, with zero leads, the threats became so frequent that Thelma consistently contacted the police and even published notes in the newspaper with the threats because Thelma was scared for her life. She actually did a press release photo where she showed herself with a handgun and a dog beside her in her apartment above the cafe, which is pretty badass as like a don't mess with me.
I mean,
eventually the FBI claimed to have found the guy who was allegedly a man in an Astoria, Queens apartment in New York, a crazed fan who said he wanted to keep Thelma receiving her notoriety and celebrity status. And he was in love with her, and he ended up admitting it, and there was no trial, and everybody just washed their hands of everything. What's really weird is that her husband, or ex-husband, Pat DiCicco, was from Astoria, Queens, New York.
Small world, I guess.
And then finally, we get to the secret boyfriend. Who the hell is he? We'll never know that either.
I thought you were going to reveal.
Because Thelma's body was undisturbed when they found her, like pretty much undisturbed. You know, a lot of Thelma YouTube videos and Thelma pods claim that she had a broken rib and her nose, which doesn't look to be true in the photos. No one heard any screams that night that she died. The night watchman who did patrols in the neighborhood didn't hear anything. So there was no struggle. So if she had actually been intending to meet up with someone from San Francisco, then she willingly went with this person. The speculation is like, oh, what if she was injected with something, or more likely drank too much and passed out? But anyway, the media headlines were like absolutely wild. The case was closed shortly after New Year's in 1936. They said it was a suicide, even though it had all these weird loose ends. There's a theory that the jury was paid off, and that loops back to the mob again. But the funeral was held, and the restaurant slowly fell into obscurity. But what about that call you received, Edwin? Did you ever get cast in The Bride of Frankenstein? No, you didn't.
Ah,
but
dang
that
it.
call actually happened to her friend, Martha Ford. She received a call from Thelma, and she swears it was Thelma, but We'll never find out who she was going to bring to the party because she was the one who, quote unquote, dropped dead before she could share.
That was the killer.
It might have been. Or it was someone establishing an alibi. I mean, I don't even know. I don't even know. Yeah, I'm sorry you didn't get cast in The Bride of Frankenstein.
That's all right. We'll try it again.
What do you think happened to her?
The suicide thing, makes logical sense. I get it. But did she normally get that drunk?
Yes.
Was that her thing? Okay.
Yeah, she had a bit of a drinking problem, yes.
It would make sense if she hadn't been with a broken nose or flipped, like as in, like it's just like that.
Weirdly positioned.
It just doesn't make sense to me. Now, could she have gotten hurt because she was so drunk? Maybe bumped her nose against the car door. It happens. But like I smashed my finger closing a Prius when I left the Uber at the airport. It happens and it turns dark. Same thing. But I mean, the carbon monoxide thing makes sense.
To me, it seems like it was probably a carbon monoxide accident. Like she came home drunk, and if it was suicide, it was like she comes home, she gets locked out, she's like, ugh. And instead of like making a big scene, you just don't have the energy and you go and you just want to go sleep it off. Yeah, it seems like an accident.
Because I mean, a lot of people don't know about it. You know, when you start a car and then that happens, you can die. Not a lot of people know about bleach either. Like you could, if you mix bleach with like anything, you can die at home.
Yeah, that's weird, that chemical reaction.
Yeah. I like all these other theories though.
Turns out Roland West and Jewel Cameron weren't even really married. They just were severely embedded in each other's lives. So Roland West could have married her at any time. But also West was like fined over tax issues and connected to a friend who ran illegal gambling with movie stars and the mafia. Again, weaving in the mafia connections, which is weird. And then there's a weird rumor that Roland West admitted to the murder on his deathbed, which is not substantiated in any way. It's just a weird theory that he admitted to it, which sounds made up.
What?
Although out of everyone, he would have been like, probably if she was murdered, that's like the easiest scenario.
Hollywood, man.
Yeah, Hollywood, man. But then I just want to do this caveat about Pat DiCicco. 2 years later, he was back at Cafe Trocadero, and he beat up the actor Ted Healy, who created the Three Stooges, and like Ted Healy died. Like this Pat DiCicco killed Ted Healy, and then somehow didn't go to jail.
What?
Yeah, Ted like fell into a coma and died, and no one was arrested for his death. Then he weaseled his way until the Vanderbilt dynasty and married Gloria Vanderbilt in 1941, when she was only 16 and he was 32. And once again, the marriage ended in divorce, and Gloria cited alcoholism and domestic abuse. How did he do it?
Half your age plus 7. That's the rule, and he broke it.
Is that the rule? I think I've heard that, but not in a while. I mean, Jesus, that guy was a weirdo. And then Thelma's mother actually established in Massachusetts, there's a film festival in Thelma Todd's honor every year. Or at least there was for a long time. I'm not sure if it's still going on post-COVID, but there was.
Hollywood sounds so insane back then. It was like
insane now
gambling,
too.
Drunk, like drugs, murders.
Yeah.
What's up with the taxes? Like, why do you guys struggle so much with taxes, guys? Like, come on. It's not like you don't have the money.
I mean, Wesley Snipes. I mean, it still happens. It still freaking happens.
Shakira, pay your taxes to Spain, please. I don't know if she did so already, but she was going to go to jail. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you don't want her to go to jail. That'd be so sad.
Yeah, that would be sad.
Luckily, Shakira's not in jail. And what are we going to talk about next week, Edwin?
I don't know. I think it'll be a surprise.
Scary Mystery Surprise is hosted by Michelle Newman and
Edwin Covarrubias. This podcast was edited and sound designed by Sarah Vorhees Wendel of VW Sound.